All right, so I will save your time. So let's just get started instantly. Last time we learned about Napoleon, kind of how he broke the meta and kind of like did his own thing to make himself more dominant. So now let's go on to number 4 on page 4. Who were the enemies of France and why did they continue to declare war on France? Well, I fortunately kind of gave you all the answers already for number 4. If you look at the last page of your worksheet, you can see all the timeline of the Napoleonic Wars. We're currently on the third coalition. I kind of gave you like a little brief review of like what happened, but here is who Napoleon is currently fighting in our notes right now. He's fighting the Holy Roman Empire, the British, the Russians, the Swedish, and the Italians. So it's France versus all these people. But what happens? Napoleon is able to win. At the Battle of Austerlitz, which we're not going to watch the video for just for time's sake, Napoleon fights the Holy Roman Empire and the Russian Empire, and it's the famous Battle of the Three Emperors: the French Emperor, the French Emperor against the Russian and Holy Roman Empire. So there's three emperors at this battle, and the French Emperor comes out on top due to the stuff we talked about last time: mixed order, core system, fanatical loyalty. And you're like, probably at this point, good job, Napoleon, I guess, good job. But why do these people keep declaring war over and over and over when France just keeps winning and winning and winning? Why keep trying? Well, I've alluded to it earlier in the slideshow, and you got to remember, people in Europe at this time period were all monarchs. Do you think if you're the leader of a country and you're a monarch, you're going to be very happy when your next door neighbor, aka France, just chopped off the head of their king and said monarchs are stupid and people should be in charge of their country? Well, yeah, you'll probably be okay with that because you're like a warm-blooded American, you love freedom and representative democracy and stuff. But at the time, the monarchs were not on board with this whole, I might get my head chopped off by my people if these French revolutionary ideas spread across my border or spread from France to my country. So that is why these groups of people, aka coalitions, kept forming against Napoleon in an attempt to defeat him. So they're like, first time wasn't the charm, second time wasn't the charm, maybe third time's the charm. Well, it wasn't, because Napoleon defeated the third coalition at Austerlitz, wiping out the Russians and the Holy Roman Empire. All right, cool. So now that Napoleon's doing super good and he just won, what is Napoleon going to actually do now that he's defeating everyone in Europe? Well, we got two vocab words. Word number 1 is La Confédération du Rhin. Essentially what that is, it's this green blob right here. La Confédération du Rhin is basically puppet states. So Napoleon won after he defeats the Holy Roman Empire. He takes a bunch of territory from the Holy Roman Empire, roughly modern-day Western Germany, and he forces them to swear loyalty to himself. And he also puts his brothers and sisters as kings and queens of these various territories. So La Confédération du Rhin, simplified, is French puppet states under the protection of France. French puppet states under the protection of France. You're probably like, that's not very liberty-like of Napoleon forcing these people to swear loyalty to him. And like, I guess it's nice that they get protection from him, but what if they don't want protection from him? But in Napoleon's defense, again, I'm trying to give you both sides of the coin, Napoleon is like, these people have been held back. They haven't had the modern ideas of the Enlightenment. So when he goes to these areas, he modernizes their schools. He eliminates serfdom, so like kind of like slavery, but not quite. He says that's bad, even though he made slavery allowed in France. That's kind of like hypocritical. But then he also modernizes their way of life. So he modernizes education. He gives women the right to go to schools. He also modernizes schools in general. So he starts teaching like maths and science, or has math and science being taught at these schools, so they can have scientists and engineers to make the modern way of life as Napoleon sees fit. Yeah, so he's modernizing these areas, building lights, building roads, building cities. He's trying to make the modern world in his Enlightenment image. But yeah, he does force them to do this. So which side of the bar you want to put it on? Hero or villain? I'll let you decide. But that is what the Confederation of the Rhine is. French client states in Germany under Napoleon's protection. Okay. So let's move on. Oh yeah, here we go. So here's some of the client states that Napoleon made, sort of puppet states. So his brother Jerome, He made King of Westphalia, which is like modern day West Germany right here, this red state. Here's me and Jerome. I thought that was pretty cool. And then he also, another part of the Confédération du Rhin was Napoleon's brother Louis. Napoleon defeats the Dutch and like other things that happen, and he makes his brother Louis king of Holland. So this idea of Napoleon just getting rid of the monarchs of France and putting his own brothers and sisters as the kings and queens of these territories is a bit not egalitarian, at the very least. But again, you can argue, well, Mr. Aguilar, the Confédération du Rhin actually modernized the way of life and made life better for like women and basically everyone in these places that he went to. So actually, the La Confédération du Rhin was a good thing. So I don't know. You get to do what you want with this information, right? Okay. Moving on, because I haven't gotten to continental system yet. What happens after Napoleon shatters the Holy Roman Empire and makes La Confédération du Rhin? Well, people are kind of annoyed that Napoleon's winning, so they're like, third time wasn't the charm, or first time wasn't the charm, second time wasn't the charm, third time wasn't the charm, fourth time will be the charm. So the Prussians, which are like the olden day Germans, are like, okay, we are going to join this new coalition, and we are going to defeat Napoleon this time. Long story short, which I give you the little bit longer version, but I'll make it even shorter for you now. Long story short, Napoleon defeats them. The Prussians are wiped out in the Battle of Jena. And then the Russians, who remake an army real quick to try to fight Napoleon, well, too bad, they're defeated at Friedland. And fourth time was not the charm. Napoleon wins the Battle of the Fourth Coalition. 4 times they've tried to defeat Napoleon, all of Europe, and 4 times they have failed. Okay, so now what does Napoleon do with all these victories? He makes something called the continental system, which is your word right here, the continental system. Now, what is the continental system? Essentially, it is a law that Napoleon forces all of Europe to abide by that prohibits trade with the UK. Law that prohibits trade with the UK, Europe must obey, according to Napoleon. That's what it is. Now, why? So from Napoleon's perspective, he's like, the only reason Europe keeps declaring war on me, not 1 time, not 2 times, not 3 times, but 4 times, is because the British, these guys, keep giving everyone money to fight me. And he's not wrong. The British are bankrolling all these people. Like for the War of the Fourth Coalition, a lot of people are like Prussia and Russia are like, maybe we shouldn't do it again because, he keeps winning. But the British are like, come on, let's just try it one more time. I'll give you like £1 million or like 100 million pounds or whatever, like their money. And they're like, oh, okay, I'll do it for $1 million. So in a way, Napoleon is right that the British keep bankrolling the enemies of France to attack France. So what Napoleon is trying to do with the continental system, aka prohibiting trade between Europe and the UK, is make the UK poor. It's like, hopefully, if no one trades with them, they'll get really poor and they won't have money to keep paying people to fight me. But we'll see that kind of backfire. So what is the continental system? Again, it is the law Napoleon makes that prohibits trade between Europe and the UK in order to make the UK poor. At least that's what Napoleon hopes. You're probably like, if Napoleon's this good at fighting, why doesn't he just invade the UK? Duh, Napoleon. Well, here's the thing. His fleet in 1805 got wiped out at the Battle of Trafalgar. Their British Navy is way more powerful than the French Navy, so it's not like Napoleon can actually get his troops there. So, yeah. The water is defending the British. Napoleon can't get to them. Yeah, here's me. They're really proud of Napoleon, so they did a bunch of stuff to make him look cool. He won a bunch of battles. Okay. Next up, we have decline in power, which I'll try to knock out in about 6 minutes. What were the 2 factors that led to Napoleon's downfall? Well, here we go. What goes up must come down. Napoleon got cocky and he did something known as dynastic ambitions. So that's number 1. What is the primary 2 factors that led to Napoleon's downfall? Number 1, dynastic ambitions. If you don't know how to spell things, it's right here. What are dynastic ambitions? Basically, Napoleon went overdrive on trying to make his brothers kings and queens of Europe. So yeah, he made the whole La Confédération du Rhin thing, but he's like, I must go further. So he starts to try to find a bunch of excuses to make more of his siblings kings and queens of the thrones of Europe. So one of these excuses was Portugal. Portugal, this little country on the Iberian Peninsula that's neighbors with Spain, kept trading with the British. So Napoleon invades Portugal because they're disobeying his continental system law that we talked about in the previous slide. But he doesn't just invade Portugal. He leaves his troops in Spain as they go from France through Spain to Portugal, and he tries to defeat Spain to put his brother Joseph on the throne and make him king of Spain. Even though Spain didn't really do anything to Napoleon to make him mad. He just wanted to make Spain under the control of his brother, which he's going to rename his brother Jose, King Jose the First, Jose Bonaparte the First of Spain. So yeah, you're like, well, what's the problem with that? Other than that's kind of weird. Well, the problem with this is everyone's going to hate Napoleon even more than they already do hate Napoleon. So even though Napoleon does defeat the Spanish army in the battlefield, just the general people in the streets are not about this life. They're like, Napoleon, yeah, you're a military genius and stuff, but we hate that you're trying to make your brothers and sisters the king of everything, because that's annoying. So we're not just going to say, okay, we lose. We're going to keep rebelling, which I'll show you in this next slide. Here we go. Here's me and Napoleon's oldest brother, Joseph. Like I said, he's renamed Jose. Here's me and Napoleon's brother, Jose. So Jose, Mr. Jose Aguilar, and Jose Bonaparte. Cool, right? But anyways, me and him are together, and Jose, Joseph, Napoleon's brother that he made king of Spain, was super unpopular, like I said, and his citizens are going to rebel against his reign the entire time. So, what factors led to Napoleon's downfall? Number one, dynastic ambitions. Everyone gets very upset that Napoleon tries to make his siblings leaders of Europe. So basically all of Europe is going to rebel against Napoleon's rule. You can see they try another coalition. Fifth coalition. Bam. They try it again, but France does win again. But notably, Napoleon struggles more to win this war. The War of the Fifth Coalition. You're like, okay, cool, Mr. Aguilar. What about the second factor? This is the one you probably already know. Here we go. That is Russia. You can just write Russia. Russia is the second reason Napoleon's empire experiences a downfall. Similar to Portugal, Russia ignores the continental system. And you're like, why is everyone ignoring Napoleon other than the fact that they hate him? Well, they ignore the continental system because, yeah, it's making the British broke, but it's also making Europe broke by not trading with the British. So no one wants to be broke, so they're just going to ignore Napoleon and try to trade on the down low. But Napoleon finds out, and then he invades Russia famously with a 400,000 plus man army. What you see right here is this famous chart. The thickness of the line indicates how many troops Napoleon has. Gray/blue being when he enters Russia, and orange being when he leaves Russia. So he enters Russia with about 422,000 men, but all of his men die on the way back, so there's only 10,000. You're like, what happened? I thought this guy was a military genius. Well, there was a couple things that happened that led to Napoleon's defeat in Russia, aka number 2. One was disease. Typhus wiped out most of his soldiers. Also the weather, the extreme heat and the extreme cold. But also the Russians used this tactic called scorched earth. Basically, if they saw Napoleon's army coming, they would just burn all of their farms and farmland and then just retreat. And they'd be like, haha, Napoleon can't eat food. And yeah, the Russian villagers were screwed because the Russian army just burned their farms, but at least Napoleon's troops would starve as well. So Napoleon wasn't able to really fight the Russians that often. Did he ever lose a battle against the Russians? No, he didn't. So good job, Napoleon. But he won every battle in Russia, but his troops just kept dying from these other various things like disease and whatnot, and the weather and lack of food. So Napoleon is poor Napoleon, poor, I guess, and he loses most of his army, and now everything seems lost for Napoleon. We'll actually end it here. We'll talk about the War of the Sixth Coalition next class, because they're going to try again to fight Napoleon, all of Europe, and we'll see how that goes for them. And maybe we'll see something known as the War of the Seventh Coalition. I don't know. Spoiler alert. I'll see you guys again on Wednesday. Ensure that you're done with everything prior to page 5, question 3. So question 2, question 1, all that stuff on page 5, and then everything prior. And I'll see you guys on Wednesday. We'll have fun on Wednesday. Bye.